to answer the question, does the improved spectral resolution of the worldview tools in multispectral imagery improve the discrimination of the invasive passage buffalo?
Hello. Do the additional bands in worldview 2 imagery improve detection of the invasive grass buffer grass? My name is Victoria Marshall, and this research forms part of my PhD at the University of Adelaide, supervised by Dr. Megan Lewis and Dr. Bertrand Hossendorf. What is worldview 2? The satellite sensor, launched fairly recently in 2009, has 8 spectral bands, and it's got a high spatial resolution, pixels of about 2 meters in the imagery, and it covers a gap in available sensors having both the high spatial resolution and a moderate spectral resolution. What makes it unique with the extra spectral bands is that it's got a shortwave blue, which they dub coastal, a yellow band, a red edge band, and a second band in the near infrared. The grass I hope to map using this imagery is buffer grass, Synchros ciliaris. It's an African perennial tussock, summer growing, and in the field you'd see the grass as a big vibrant bunch of green with a purplish haze over the top, being the purple dubaceous seed heads. You can't see those seed heads from above easily at all. The plant reproduces both via those seeds and by underground rhizomes. And the result of this is that in the landscape you'll see it both as dense monocultures and as sparse tussocks, isolated. So the result of this is that they can be quite small units that we're trying to detect. That said, the plant is quite big and it can grow to over 1 metre in diameter and as high. In this bottom picture you can see that as the old leaves die, they don't just fall off the plant, they accumulate around the base of the plant, so you'll often get sort of a ring of dead vegetation around it. Why are we interested in buffer grass? Well, as I said in the title, it's an invasive species, and by this I mean it's a weed that spreads really quickly. And this is a problem because it forms those dense monocultures. It can keep out natives, the daisies and native grasses, pictured are some of the things being displaced by buffer grass. Also in that list are our big river red gums. Buffer grass forms in the creek lines with them, and it's really quick to ignite, which is the next big problem with buffer grass. It's a real fire hazard. And the river red gums can't survive those fires. On the other hand, it's also really useful for pasture. It's widely sown as a pasture species in arid and semi-arid rangelands. It's also used for mine site rehabilitation and erosion control. Given that it is such an important and topical species, there has been some work done on buffer grass before. In the last 10 years or so, Landsat has been used, and it has been reasonably successful in picking up very dense infestations of buffer grass mixed in with couch. Well, you can't detect it by itself at all. So this is new work for this scale. The area selected to run this trial is Central Australia, just west of Alice Springs. As you can see in the picture, this is an arid area with a slight tropical influence, producing lots of summer rains, which buffel grass really responds to. It was introduced into the area in the 1970s as erosion control. Alice Springs is, you can see there, lots of red dust that blows up around the airport, and it was a huge problem. And buffel grass is very successful in minimising that problem. So this area was selected because of the presence of buffel grass, but also because there's a lot of local knowledge in the area, and for that I have to thank Peter Latz from the Alice Springs Herbarium, and also because it's a diverse landscape. Here's the site. So, Alice Springs on the top there, the airport just down the bottom where buffel grass was introduced. Buffel grass spread out from there mostly along watercourses and along the roadsides, and it's now prolific in the area. So you can see all the bright green there is going through the creek lines. Pretty sure that's buffel grass. So the site is covering 3 or 4 peaks of the McDonald Ranges, which is a beautiful spot. Simpson's Gap in the top corner there. The whole top half of the imagery is dominated by fairly high ground granitic acacias, mulgas, and some buffel grass in the understory. That sort of blue streak, spinifex grasses on dolomite. And the black spots are where I conducted field validation for imagery. I'll go into that now. So this image was captured in January of 2011 after heavy rains. So the buffel grass was very green, but so was all the other vegetation. The field campaign undertook that 2 months after in March and collected buffel grass projected cover estimates at those black dot locations. So, back to my original question, do the additional bands of Worldview 2 imagery improve detection of buffel grass? I've divided this into 2 sections for the talk today. Firstly, are the 8 bands better than 4? I'll talk about that using a linear discriminant analysis of the spectra. And secondly, what can we detect using Worldview 2? Can we actually pick the buffel grass up? So I'll start with that first question. So, began by collecting some representative spectra of the key vegetation cover types from the imagery, collected those spectra from the imagery for buffel grass as a lush, big mature plant, in the top corner there, burnt, which was new buffel grass growth over a really charcoaly ground, and also greys, which I have a picture of, what you can imagine. Native grasses, just to see if we can pick up the difference between buffel grass and the native. The acacia and our big river red gum, the eucalypt. So, can we tell the difference between those spectra? Collected 5 to 7 representative spectra for each of those vegetation cover types, and ran a linear discriminant analysis. The first 2 discriminators were considered, and I've summarised the results of that in this table, with my spectral groupings based on my interpretation of the image and my understanding of where it was burnt and grazed and lush, and the groupings as defined by the linear discriminant analysis on the top. So the table is divided into 2 sections. We ran the analysis using 4 bands, only 4 bands, and on the full 8 bands on the bottom half of the table there. And just to take one example, on the prediction based on 8 bands, the burnt buffel grass, burnt C. ciliaris. I classified as burnt buffel grass. The linear discriminant analysis classified it as raised buffel grass. So, yeah, and you'll notice that using the 4-band analysis, we've got fewer of those red, wrongly classified spectra. The 4-band analysis came up stronger, marginally stronger. So, why is that? Well, we consider that maybe due to spectral variation within the spectra cover classes. Shown here, we've got the mean, minimum and maximum spectra for each of the vegetation cover class spectra. Each group is offset by 1,000, so we're not sitting on top of each other. And just take a look at where the variation is within those groups. So ideally you want them to all be fairly close together. But I'd suggest that the most of the variation is coming from the second near infrared, the yellow in some cases, the red edge. Those extra 4 bands are bringing variation into the analysis and lowering its effectiveness. So that concludes part 1. I'll move on to part 2 now. What can we detect with WorldView 2, and can we detect the buffel graphs? I'm going to start with a principal component analysis, just to explore what the imagery can tell us. So displayed here are the first 3 principal components, representing 95% of variation within the imagery. Principal component 1 is picking up overall albedo. PC2 is picking up the green actively growing photosynthetic vegetation. And you can see all the bright values along the creek lines, buffel grass. And PC3 is picking up the red features, the soil. So the graphs below are the eigenvector values showing the contribution of bands to those principal components. And if you take a look at PC2, the lowest is band 5, red band, and the highest is band 7, near infrared 1. So I used the red and the near infrared 1 to do an NDVI, which is the standard for vegetation classification, so the obvious place to start. Got the grayscale with the bright values being more actively growing vegetation. And just placed a threshold on that of 0.3, say above this, I think that's vegetation. And you can see it covers a huge area. That's because of the high rainfalls just before the image was captured. Everything was green. So we need a better method to classify the imagery. And I selected a mixture tuned matched filtering approach. This approach uses a target spectra, in our case lush buffel grass, to produce an image of a grayscale image of matched filtering scores similarity to that target spectra. And background spectra, in this case being the acacia and the eucalypt native grasses, to produce another grayscale image of infeasibility. So this might look like buffel grass, but I'm telling you it's not buffel grass. So I use the ratio of those 2 images and applied the threshold in the same way with the NDVI. In this case it was above 0.1 to say I think this is buffel grass. So you can see it's a lot more discriminatory than the NDVI. And if you take a look at the close-up on the other side there, you can see that what you've got there is a creek line and a rocky outcrop intersecting, and you can see smudges of grey inside the creek line. Those are the river red gums. You can see the bright yellow classified on the banks of the creek. That's the buffer grass. So it's looking pretty good. Using those field validation sites I showed you at the beginning, recorded an overall accuracy of 59% for accurately classifying the buffer grass. Within this we have some under and over classification. For example, if we look again at the site that I've just shown you of the creek line and the ridge, has correctly excluded the trees from the classification of buffer grass, but you can see up the hill here, that was mixed buffer grass and natives and has not been classified here. On the other hand, we go to a small town, it's just caught in the imagery over here, Oval, which is irrigated, is not buffer grass, but it has been classified as buffer grass in part. So there's been some over-classification as well. Okay, to summarise, based on our linear discriminant analysis, exploring whether 4 bands or 8 bands are better, in our case, 4 bands was adequate. Worldview 2 imagery can be used to discriminate buffer grass from surrounding vegetation. The mixture tuned match filtering classification approach was 59% accurate. In our example, we are classifying buffer grass in a very green environment, arid, subtropical, and I suspect that in other scenarios those additional 4 bands would be more beneficial. For example, had the imagery been captured at the start of the summer period, just after the heavy rains, when some of the surrounding vegetation was still dried off, yellow band might have been more beneficial, but overall returned some pretty good results. So, thanks for listening, and please take out to read the acknowledgements.
Maybe I have a question or a comment. Did you try to add the picture information extracted from the world view to image to increase the classification accuracy?
No, but that is good to look at. Just only use the multispectral.
Yeah.
And do you think you'll look at a multi-sample, so you'll look at invasion, so you might see some movement in the buffer grass?
That would be good to look at, but nearly finished the PhD, so
Okay. Thank you.
thanks.
Closing this session, I would like you all to join me to thank all the speakers for their interesting presentations, and thank you again for attending. Thanks.